Oh man, it's freezing in my office. Did I ever tell you that I live in Canada, winter wonderland? Yeah, it feels like it. This morning we just reached freezing point, starting fall with this, and now I realize that my eating floors in my office and throughout my entire house don't work. So I'll be working with a toque for a while now. But we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about a long debated topic among dividend investors. On the right corner, we have the heavyweight, high yield, strong company with low growth perspective. Or on the left corner, we have the lightweight, very low yielding stock with a strong growth potential. So, is it going to be high yield, low growth, or high growth, low yield? Your choice. I'm getting warm up. Watch the intro, grab a cup of coffee, and we'll do this. Dividend investors, bonjour, this is Mike Hiroux, founder of Dividend Stocks Rocks and passionate investor. And yes, I am going to do this video with my toque on because it's not a setup. I am really freezing in my office today. Today I'm answering a question from Kevin, one of my DSR member. He sent me an email asking me, Mike, I've noticed a pattern among dividend stocks. When you have a strong growing companies, it usually pays a low yield, but you have like a higher chance of making capital gains on it. On the other side, when you have a low growth perspective company with lower capital gain at the end of the story, those companies usually pay a higher yield. So I'm debating in the next 15-20 years, which type of stocks would be best for my portfolio? Now, Kevin, I'll start with the most boring answer, but a classic in the financial industry. Well, Kevin, it depends. It really depends because the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That means that if you're looking for yield, chances are you're going to be tempted by looking at higher yield with low growth perspective, right? Because you want to generate income from your portfolio. On the other side, if you're in your 30s or 40s like me, and you want to grow your portfolio as fast as possible and as big as possible, chances you're gonna look at the growth option with lower yield and probably just ignore the fact that the yield is at 1% or 1.5%. And before I dig deeper in this topic, I must make a parenthesis. I started dividend investing in 2010 when I bought the Dividend Guy blog. Back then, I was convinced that dividend investing was the right strategy. I did my studies, I did my research, and after several years of investing, I came to that conclusion that dividend growth investing rocks, really. And at that time, I used to ignore low-yielding stocks. Even if you pull back and you reach my first articles that I wrote on that blog, you'll probably find out that my minimum requirement in terms of yield was between 2.5 to 3%. So most of my holdings were like classic stocks such as Johnson & Johnson and Coca-Cola, right? And a couple of years after, while I was digging a little bit deeper and doing a little bit more research, I found out that growth stocks consistently increasing their dividend, even though the yield was small, was offering an incredible opportunity. And this is how I discovered stocks like Disney and Apple, which shows triple-digit return in my portfolio today. Now, I'm not saying that the low yield, high growth is automatic at all, or it's better than other stocks. In fact, what I've discovered through this process is if I use dividend growth as one of my first metrics to filter down my stock research, what I will discover is companies with great opportunities, with great growth vectors, and that are likely to do very well in the stock market. So it has nothing to do with the yield, but rather in regards to the dividend growth policy. Now I can really understand that if you're retired or you're seeking to generate income from your portfolio, investing in Disney with a 1.5% yield may not be the Klondike for you. It might not be interesting. You're gonna tell me, Mike, I can't even buy my cookie and cream ice cream with that dividend. And I'm not talking about ice cream right now because I'm craving. I'm talking about ice cream because I am freezing. But nonetheless, what happened when you're about to retire? You want to generate income from your portfolio. And I can totally understand that on personal perspective, when you look at your portfolio, if you can generate that $40,000 in dividend that you need to live, you rather cash those checks and not touch your shares. So you're just thinking, oh, I'm holding shares like 100 shares of company ABC paying me a 4.5 yield, and I'm just gonna take the yield and never look back at my shares. So whenever I pass away and I give that money to my spouse or my children, they will get all the shares and will not lose value. And to be honest, this is not such a bad thinking at all. Actually, it kind of makes sense. And I would like to just bring that chart just to show you that even high yielding stocks with low dividend growth policy could actually do well during the market. So just let's switch the screen for a second. So now what you're looking at is the SPI, AT&T, and Compass Diversified Holding total return over the past decade. As you can see, Cody did a lot better than the market, and interesting enough, they increased their dividend payment only once throughout the past decade. We're talking about a total dividend growth of 6%, not annualized, over the past 10 years. As for AT&T, company paid between 5 and 6% in dividend yield for the past decade, kind of like a safe bet there. And the dividend growth was 24% over that decade. So basically just barely following the inflation, probably a little bit under actually. But at least you're getting a little bit better in terms of income compared to Cody. But in both cases, they did well during the bull market. And now I want to shift to another graph showing you what low yielding stocks like Starbucks, Disney, and Microsoft did. As you can see, their total return are over 400% in the past decade. They have outperformed the market by a large margin. And what they have in common there as well is they increase their dividend by more than 200% during that period. Now, I know that this example is more cherry picking than anything. It has no empiric research or any strong financial fundamentals behind it. And I'm not using this to make a point that you should always look for the low yielding stocks and ignore high yielding ones. Actually, what I wanted to show you is that if emotionally, if it's important to generate income, you're not that bad selecting companies with a higher yield and focusing on that compared to the market. It's not the end of the world. Chances are you're going to outperform the market if you're looking at companies with strong growth vectors and a strong dividend growth policy, regardless of the yield. In fact, when I look at a company, the yield doesn't really matter. What I really like to see is a strong dividend triangle, strong growth vectors going forward, and obviously a healthy dividend growth policy. If those metrics are all combined together and the yield is 4 or 5%, well, you know what? I'll be happy to dig further and to write down my investment thesis and see if it works. If you look at my personal portfolio, you'll see that I have a few high yielding stocks. Stocks like Enbridge, Emera, Fortis, Intertape Polymer, all those companies are yielding over 4%, but they still show a healthy dividend growth perspective. And overall, I think that those companies will do very well in the future. So the most important part, once again, is to write down your investment thesis and to find out how the company will be able to increase their dividend payment, regardless if it's a high yield or your low yield. Now, if you are about to withdraw money from your portfolio, so basically about to retire, and you're wondering if you should focus on low yielding stocks and how you will manage that, because obviously you won't be able to live on the low yield payment. You will have to withdraw money from your portfolio by selling shares. I am preparing a video about that. I wrote an article that I will leave in the notes below, but basically the strategy that I would use if I had to generate income from my portfolio tomorrow morning is to create a cash emergency fund. Basically by selling stocks according to getting rid of bad selections, cutting down on my winners to make sure that my sector allocation still makes sense, and sell. Let's say I need for $30,000 a year in income, I would probably sell between $30,000 to $45,000 worth of dividend stocks. And as I am getting out my money monthly, I would also count on the dividend payment, even if the dividend payment of my portfolio is roughly like 2.5, 3%, like lower than what I need. It will smoother my withdrawals, and it will give me more time to determine when it's the next best time to look at my portfolio and sell for another $30,000 to $45,000. So basically with that strategy, what I'm making sure is that I have for over a year and a half worth of income ready for withdrawal. And at the same time, I'm looking at the market to see if we're in a bull market, I keep selling, but if we're in a bear market, I'm just gonna wait a little longer. And between the cash reserve that I've built and the dividend payment, I can wait almost 2 years. So giving a chance for my stocks to recover before I can start selling again. So in conclusion, I would tell you that the best strategy for yourself is the one that will help you sleep well at night. So if you feel better picking up retirement portfolio that we have at DSR, generating 4.5 to 5% in yield, and stick with that, and you don't care about beating the market or not, you just care about getting enough to live each year, that's totally fine. You don't need to beat the market. If you reach your investing goal, you'll be happy. And if you're not stressed out because your portfolio is like smoother and doesn't fluctuate that much during a bear market, that's even better. So you don't have to care about beating the market or not. But what I'm telling you is, if you're about total return, obviously focusing on dividend growth instead of dividend yield will give you a better chance of reaching your investing goal. I hope that you have enjoyed that video. Keep those questions coming. I just love it. It creates a great interaction. So if you're watching this video and you're not a DSR member yet, please click on the link below. Check out our services. And if you are, well, thank you for having me in your investing journey, having me as your hiking buddy in that long mountain hike. It's just going to be so much fun. And until the next video, stay invested.